You're listening to the Onside Podcast, the podcast for inclusive, innovation-driven entrepreneurship here in Atlantic Canada. I'm your host, Alex McCann, and this is Season 2, Episode 12, and the theme this month is Out of the Lab and Into the Market, Creating a Company. Today, I'm joined by Bronwyn Bridges, a Ph.D. student in pharmacy at Memorial University in Newfoundland, who is the co-founder and CEO of PragmaClin, a company focused on assessing and monitoring neurological conditions such as Parkinson's disease. Alongside her co-founder and COO, Gord Genge, an entrepreneur who has Parkinson's, the pair are making a difference in the lives of patients with movement disorders. Their PRIM software runs tests on patients using cameras to remotely monitor motor and non-motor skills. PragmaClin is a recent Volta Cohort winner and has also won the top prize of $25,000 at the Mel Woodward Cup, a competition for startups connected to Memorial University. All right, Bronwyn, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, we had a chance earlier to kind of learn a little bit about your background and some of the things that you're interested in and how you got involved in researching neurological conditions such as Parkinson's and things like that. But maybe for some of our listeners who don't know you that well or haven't heard of PragmaClin before, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself and maybe some of your work and your research and your studies?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Bronwyn Bridges. I grew up in Summerside, Prince Edward Island before moving to St. FX in Nova Scotia there. Went to St. FX for 4 years, taking a Bachelor of Science in Biology degree and minored in psychology. And while I was taking that degree, I had some major concussions that took place in my third and fourth years. And I also worked alongside a Parkinson's patient. So all of this combined stemmed my, interest and piqued my interest into studying neurological disease. So I started hunting down what programs I would be eligible for with my grades and my background and what I have taken. And I ended up coming across the Master's of Pharmacy program at Memorial University in Newfoundland, and decided that would be a perfect fit with my supervisor who was studying concussions and neurodiseases such as Parkinson's. So then I moved to Newfoundland and started my master's program in September 2019. And shortly after that, we had a lab flood, then we had Snowmageddon, and then we had COVID. So it was a stem of a terrible few years of first moving here. I think I brought all the bad luck with me. But it was really rewarding when I was first doing it. I had a few hurdles that I had to overcome, ethics approval that took really long times, and working out of the lab because I couldn't be in the lab, things like that. I ended up pivoting my research, working alongside a Parkinson's patient, and we ended up developing a software that we developed called PRIMS. So we started a company called PragmaClin. And our first software, the PRIMS software, is an assessment tool that assists clinicians in providing better care for their neurological disease patients. And this stemmed from the burden on the healthcare system, the shortage of specialists with our aging population, and the long wait times and in-between appointment times that we currently have in our healthcare system. Although no fault of the neurologists, it is a fault of the healthcare system that we currently have. And we wanted to be able to make a difference because we wanted to be able to help patients see help faster than Gord had to experience himself, where he actually flew to Montreal for an assessment and a diagnosis and then came back.
Wow.
So that's kind of how the research all stemmed into a company. It was a little bit of a blurry transition over 2 years, but here we are. We are a startup based in Newfoundland now. We have won a few pitch competitions over the past few months, if you've seen us in the news. And yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. We developed our MVP, and we're currently about to pilot actually some validation studies here in Canada.
Oh, nice.
So we have a contract for one of them to begin in Ontario at the moment with OBIO, which is an organization that helps support bring in local innovations to the healthcare system.
Oh, nice. I love that. I love it when health authorities and groups and things like that try to work with upcoming companies that are starting up and have new ways of doing things, especially ones things that are trying to alleviate some of the pressure that we face in the healthcare system. I think I had mentioned this before, but my father had Parkinson's disease, and actually my grandfather had Parkinson's disease as well. There's research that suggests that it's more men that get it, and some indications it could be genetic, but we'll keep going with that. And I definitely know getting some support, especially that can be delivered at home. As I understand your technology, you kind of use remote monitoring type systems to help evaluate patients and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about how it works, just so people have a sense of like what's going on?
Yeah, of course. So the system that we have, it has changed a tremendous amount since we began. We had our first MVP developed by a local firm here, and then we realized, wow, tech is so expensive. So we brought in some of our own developers in-house instead, thanks to some wage subsidies from the province. So now we actually have our own tech team, which is way better for us, especially when we have things we want to change, because we can quickly implement and turn things around, which makes a world of a difference. And so we actually performed a usability study on bringing in a dozen Parkinson's patients in St. John's, brought them in, ran them through the full software, and got feedback. And then because of that, we've kind of changed what our original plan was. So we have gone everywhere from like, this will be a device in a person's home, we will ship it out, to okay, maybe this isn't at home at all, and there's just an online portion. So we have been everywhere on the spectrum and tested all the avenues and the benefits for neurologists as well as Parkinson's patients, because in order for Parkinson's patients to actually have better care, the neurologist has to find the software useful, helpful, and save time, or else why would they want to use the software? And so a lot of our customer outreach and surveys and everything have led us to our system currently, which is a kind of two-part system. There is a pre-appointment survey, similar to if you were to go for blood work and you're told to do certain things before you come in, or certain tests and scans. So at home, before you come in for your appointment in the office, you would answer your self-assigned survey. And that actually is based off of an international scale that you would be asked in office by the neurologist or the nurse anyways. So this is now saving time so they can see more patients. So you answer these surveys through either a computer, a tablet, a phone before you arrive at the office. When you arrive at the office, if you have or haven't done it, would depend. If you haven't done the survey, the iPad there, you would complete it before you start your assessment. And if you've done it, then you would go into the triage room where the PRIM system would be. And then you actually run through all of the motor tests that would be done by the neurologist in the actual assessment typically. So this is kind of like a twofold help. We're hoping that patients are actually able to come in now maybe 4 times a year instead of twice a year or once a year, and have those markers of how they're progressing over time, so it's a little more accurate. But also then in terms will help the neurologist, because instead of wasting a bunch of the appointment time going through tests that they didn't actually need to assess because they were fine, they can see that just by looking at the report card that was printed out from PRIMS. So now they can actually focus on the areas that need the most care and the most attention, and actually deep dive into what's causing a lot of the problems from the symptoms that the patients are going through.
Yeah. That sounds, I'm like, oh man, I wish they had that for more things, because sometimes you go to the doctor's office and you spend all this time doing kind of evaluation stuff, which you do want them to see, but you're missing out kind of on getting to the priority areas, or you don't have as much time, and there's, a waiting room full of people. And you're either on one end, you're either in the room with the extra time, or you're in the waiting room like 2 hours later, still waiting to get your appointment.
Exactly. And so, we wanted to, obviously start with Parkinson's just because it's, near and dear to our heart. But the software that we have developed and the algorithms that we have are easily able to include other diseases and motor spectrums quite easily. So, that's brain injury, concussion, rehabilitation, stroke, MS, you name it. It could include these scales as well. So we want to start with the Parkinson's community, because that's what triggered the beginning of all of it. But we are also able to include so many other things, and hope that this, can alleviate a lot of the stress we have on the healthcare system with more objective reporting, because everything right now is subjective. I mean, I'm not downgrading anything a neurologist does, because they are fantastic at what they do and they have the expertise in doing it, but it is all subjective and they know that, and it's based off of their assessments that they have. So we wanted to actually be able to hopefully give them these objective measures that they can look at. They can look at it fast, they can see a number, and they can say, okay, yeah, I don't need to look at that today. We're okay on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see a wide range when you have that huge data set. It's like, it's a really wide range. That's really great. Now, we talked about this a little bit before, and, your company is a early stage company. You yourself, you're still kind of going through your program, doing your research, your PhD, and you're working with your co-founder on launching this company and scaling it and going out to pitches and, doing all those things. And I've talked about this here in Nova Scotia. We also have a lot of companies that are kind of in the life sciences space and the med tech space. And we have a growing number of those kinds of companies. And I'm kind of wondering, what's been your experience, or what has it been like to try to grow a med tech company? Like, what are some of the challenges that come along with that? Because
so many.
Yeah, so many. So yeah. So what are some of those challenges? There's a lot of different things, from the research to regulatory. Like, what's been your experience there?
It really depends, first and foremost, what kind of avenue you're coming from as a founder. So for myself and my co-founder, I mean, he has business expertise in his previous life here, and I have the research expertise, but neither of us are the tech founder. And so when we started, we didn't have a tech founder, and we've recently brought one on. But in those early days, you learn very quickly how much it costs to have tech development and how expensive things can get, especially as things are changing. So as we're doing more customer surveys and we say, no, we don't need that, or yes, we need to add that, it costs every single time we want to modify something. So I think the first thing is, the cost of a tech company. There's a lot of coders and developers that end up starting their own companies, and they're able to work on this, but it is time consuming, and that's taking them away from the business side of things. So having the right team, building the right team is crucial from day one. And I think we've done a pretty good job of finding the right people who have a passion for what we're doing. We are selective in that if you don't have the right expertise, you don't check all the boxes on things, that's okay. We'd still love to hear from you if this is something you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, you can learn anything. And that's what I try and tell everybody. Finding expertise hasn't been super difficult. We've had a lot of nice connections through the community and the ecosystem here, forwarding us to good advisors and good mentors. We have even found some people in the US who have been great advisors for us as well. And I think that if you soft outreach people, they can soft outreach other people, and you can pretty well find a good team to help you get over the humps that you might be having. One obvious thing for a startup is you can bootstrap for so long, but in medtech, it is very difficult to bootstrap your whole way there because, like I said, tech is expensive, regulatory is expensive, everything is expensive. And so having funding and the government and the programs all actually believing in what you're doing and actually funding and backing you in those early days is crucial. You're going to come back and help the economy and help the ecosystem here. So if people are supporting you from the beginning, that is crucial in those early days, especially knowing, like I know myself, several medtech companies who are like, we only have this much runway left. And if somebody doesn't step in and help us right now, we're going under. And that's just so devastating to hear, that there is these fantastic companies with amazing ideas that could change the world. And we have the local economy not supporting them, but supporting outside activities that are not even in the country. And so I think just really taking a step back and calling on the government and the organizations that are supposed to support us in the early days to help, because that comes along with the regulatory and the IP and protecting everything. And if they want it all to say, it was a local, for example, it was a local Newfoundland company, then we expect that there was support to keep us here from the beginning. And that comes with investment. I mean, there is investment opportunities if you're VC backable. They want to see profits within so many years. And as a medtech startup, that can be really hard. The sales cycle is so much longer and the regulatory process is so much longer that getting investors who understand that can be a little more difficult in the local ecosystem, because a lot of it is not medtech and not digital tech companies based. We see that a lot more up and coming, and there is a lot more medtech companies on the rise, but I think it's something that maybe they're not used to investing in pre-pandemic. And so trying to kind of change focus and realize that technology can be super beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah. No, you raise a really important point, because the time horizon for a med tech, or we're not even going to go into biotech, but is much longer, or clean tech is much longer. And folks have been really excited about all the SaaS companies, or people have been making apps, or like all this kind of stuff, and that all of those kinds of things are really great. But the time horizon for to get a prototype or to get a medical device approved is just much longer, even before you actually even go to the market. And any kind of change to your product or service, or how something is rendered, takes just a much longer period of time. So I think that's a really, really important point to raise. That's really crucial for folks who are looking at investment or developing or working on a company that's in that field. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need support from the early days, or that runway just shortens and shortens, and it is such a long process. So I just recommend you start early. If you have an idea that you're passionate about and you think that you could make something out of it, then make sure you have those conversations early on so that you're set up for success at a later date.
That's really interesting. I mean, I think the trajectory of the timeline that it takes to build a medtech company is really interesting. And, you decided to start your company in Newfoundland, which you mentioned there are a lot of great things that are kind of going on that are happening in Newfoundland. What are some of the things that you're sort of seeing in Newfoundland or in Atlantic Canada that could really help companies that are in this space or in this field? Like, is there something do you feel like there's something happening, or is there a groundswell of activity that's going on that's making it right for a company like yours to kind of like emerge?
Yes. One program that has been a game changer for us is upcoming, Bounce Health. They are based in St. John's, and they literally take away the barriers for medtech companies, whether that's providing help with law, providing opportunities for travel and networking, whether they're providing interns that you wouldn't otherwise be able to pay and afford. They also had an embryo grants competition where they awarded the top medtech companies some grants. So they have so many supports that are the exact barriers that they know medtech companies go through, because they are people who have been through medtech companies and know exactly the trajectory of how that goes. So they try and basically just take down walls that they might know that you're going to come up to. There's a lot of other regional supports, the MCE, so the MUN Center for Entrepreneurship. They're super helpful if you're a student looking to progress your company. So they offer like work terms where you can take your research, you can get paid to work on it for a semester and try and turn it into a company instead of having to work another job. We have programs, like Genesis here is the incubator if you're already further along, or you could do Evolution if you're not. And even in Halifax, there's programs that because of COVID, it's made it possible that companies outside of the regional area can avail of. So we've taken advantage of Volta Cohort and Ready to Launch as well, which has been really great over the summers. It's a way that we actually have a stipend to continue to work on this full time. So we're not working at a full-time job right now. This is the job thanks to Ready to Launch. So programs like that are so supportive, and not only do they offer what could be monetary value, but a lot of advisory support and connections. So even the connections, I think, are number one for us right now. Like if you know anybody that can help us, I always am like, reach out, please. But I say that to everybody. And then same goes the other way. If you have questions and you think I know somebody that, and you saw somebody on my LinkedIn that would be a good connection for you, happy to soft intro people. And I think that soft intros are what makes the ecosystem. It really is.
That's so great to hear, because I do think that over the last number of years, the number of supports that are out there are growing. I think that they were always there, but I do feel like in the last probably 5 years or so, and maybe even because, I hate to say it, but even because of the pandemic, at least in our region here in Nova Scotia with the health system and all of these sort of, negative impacts, the focus or the refocus on health and needing to provide better care with limited staff, with doctors, nurses, and other practitioners completely stretched. I think there's an acknowledgement of the pressure that's on the system, and that we do have to do things in a new and in a different way. So there seems to be a bit of openness and a recognition that now is the time to make ourselves open to companies like PragmaClin and other companies that are trying to do that, and creating supports and programs that allow you to actually make it down the runway, because the valley of death in a startup is a real thing. And you're right, it's one thing to be down in your basement programming the night away, or, at a hackathon or something, but it's a little bit more hard to do when you have a tangible product and real patients and folks that you're not just making a game app or something like that. So it's a little bit more involved. And the regulatory is a big hurdle as well. Have you found, I know you're sort of at the beginning stage, have you found that there's something that's kind of more difficult to gain access to, whether it's talent or obviously people haven't been able to travel, to get to all the conferences and AVMED and things like that. Is there something that you feel like could really make a difference?
Yeah, there is. There's a few different areas that could definitely make a difference for us, and just kind of where we are and what we had to overcome to get where we are now. One of them is if we're looking at staying in Canada and we're looking at to be a Canadian company, then it is having support from Canada. And there is local companies and things that will help, or local programs, that will help, like I said, and I listed some there. But I think just, the access to funding is just so difficult, and it might be there and you might be able to get it, but you might have one of your co-founders, for example, I think of Gord, spending months trying to put together an application that has a turnaround time of another 6 months, and then another 6 months to even get paid. And you have to somehow have it worked into your cash flow, because it's all reimbursable. It's not actually upfront money, and it makes it really difficult, like incredibly difficult for somebody who has to bootstrap out of their own pocket something that they believe in. But if you believe in it, they're like, you'll do it if you believe in what you're doing. And I understand that motive of, we're not going to provide money up front, but even some portion of it, like to try and make payroll and then have to wait several weeks to get your payroll back is hard. It is very, very hard. And access to finding out about regulatory, we've been trying to hunt down billing codes and regulatory approval and things in Canada alone. And the system is overworked. So trying to have these conversations with neurologists is hard. Their time is limited, and they don't have the time to spare to have conversations to answer all these questions. So to have a resource in the government or somewhere that can actually answer these questions that we're struggling with. And then the third would be trade commissioners are awesome, and access to outside Canada is awesome. But some more support in trying to export as well, because that process, like we said, in Canada is so long to get the regulatory approval, and the process of doing validation trials that you're now paying out of pocket for to even validate that it works is difficult. So without external investment in a medtech company, it is going to be very, very hard to survive. And so we see ourselves being like, well, what if the US market is a better option, because it's a faster turnaround time in the sales channel if it's private. And so we see ourselves looking at that. So having support that if you can't help us here in Canada, then how can you at least help us start in the US to come back and help you here? Because if the resources aren't here locally, then they need to be somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for a lot of Canadian companies, not just in the medtech space, is the market, the timelines. In some ways, it's great here in Canada. We have a very robust regulatory environment, want to make sure that everybody is safe and, well cared for and all of those great things. But it does create hurdles, especially for small growing companies that are hungry, but really need to beat the pavement. And, with a lot of stress and strain, especially in the healthcare system today, it does make it challenging. And everybody loves the passion economy, but the passion economy goes like a lot further if you have like passion dollars to go with it. So we need like the passion economy with the passion dollars to
I
kind
like
of
that.
like
I'm going to use that from now on. The passion dollars. Yeah. Quote that in my next pitch competition.
Yes. Yeah. You also say, line up the passion dollars here, people.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing kind of like the challenges and what it's really like and what it feels like, because I can hear through you and, what you told me about Gord, like how hungry and interested in, you are in developing this company and all the things that you're learning along the way. And also the great feedback that you're getting directly from patients and, your neurologists and the doctors in the hospital system that are working with you. But then there's the everyday, accounting and finance and operational stuff that you have to kind of manage through as well. Not everything is as fun as a pitch competition where people are like clapping and yay and all that kind of stuff. So what's next on the horizon? Like, what are you going to be focusing on next? So I think you said you were doing your trials and those kinds of things. What does the next phase look like for you guys?
Yeah, we're hoping to have our system, what we'll call clinic ready, by Q1 2023 here. So we have a system and it works and everything, but we want it to be, like I said, the perfect child that we send out into the world. And so we want to have the system fully ready by Q1. And that looks like running these validation trials within Ontario. So we have a health authority who is interested in running it with their network that they have there, which is 5 hospitals, 2 specializing in neurology. And that's all funded through OBIO. So we love seeing validation trials that are funded from the government. And so that will run when that software is ready in Q1. Hopefully about 6 to 8 months on timelines. And during that, we're looking at what it looks like to actually run a trial in the US. And that's to begin that FDA regulatory process and approval, possibly only needing a 510K and piggybacking off of something very similar in a different context. But we have to kind of hunt that out. So the next 6 months look like working with the advisor that we currently have and scoping out the buyers and why they would buy it, and what the sales channel is going to kind of look like for us if we enter the US market. And not to say that we're not doing the Canadian market, because that's also not true, but we have to kind of simultaneously run these things parallel in order to not sit at a standstill for forever waiting for regulatory.
Yeah.
The hope is that the validation trials in Ontario go well and we can actually have procurement out of it in the end, whether that's locally through Newfoundland or through Ontario. But regulatory approval, like I said, is a long process and we can't sit around and wait for it. So we're going to run these trials and hopefully have the results that we're looking for. And over those next 6 months, we're raising an investment round of $1 million, and that's going to be enough runway for us for the next year to run these trials. So that is pretty well where my time is spent now for the next 6 months is seeking funding and raising around. And Gord is currently looking for some more government funding projects for us to hold us over as well. But like I said, long turnaround times can make it a little more difficult. So we're looking at what our options are and hopefully being able to keep everybody on the same path and trajectory.
Awesome. Well, that's so great. I have 2 final questions that I just want to ask. One was a quick question that I had. I know we had a chance to talk before in one of our previous episodes, but have you been able to find community with other women entrepreneurs who are focused in the med tech space? What is that like? Is there what's happening there?
So fascinating. Everybody is so awesome. They're so supportive. It is so wonderful. There is a few series actually that are put on across the country that are like a Women in Tech breakfast series. So I've been to some of those. We do meet some really wonderful people there, but it's a little less personal. But locally, a founder or CEO of a company here started a network. It's called Tequity.
Oh, I like that.
Equality. Yeah. So it's very cool. But it's like tech and then equality all together. I love it.
I love that.
And so we actually have these monthly workshops and we all sit in a room together. There's like 50 of us and we talk about the challenges and what we're facing and how to overcome things. And there's like a new topic every month. And we also have a Slack channel so we can just message when we have advice to give or we need advice on something. So the network is there, and there is women who are all kind of in the same boat, and it just takes one to kind of start the fire, and then it starts burning. And like I said, Bounce Health, also a really great network to actually, find the same people in the same field and then narrow it down. There is women here. I'm not the only lady in the room. And we kind of have come together to work on what we love and find where the gaps in the system are and how we can be helped in that way. And I know there is like also national programs and funding opportunities like Women in Tech and things like that. So there is lots of programs out there that can help women in this field. It's just a matter of having the right conversations with the right people.
Yeah. Okay. I love that Tequity. That just by the name, it's like, oh, I gotta go check that out. So for folks who are out there, check it out. Sounds really great. And my last question, another one we like to ask our guest on the podcast is because we're focused on innovation-driven entrepreneurship here at Onside, and I'm wondering how you would define innovation-driven entrepreneurship. What does that mean to you?
Taking something you are passionate about and following it through until the very end. There is entrepreneurship in everything. You could literally go out and sell you water. You know what I mean? You can sell absolutely everything, right?
That's a big business.
And people have done that. So I know it's crazy. There's water everywhere, and yet we still sell it. It's crazy. But that's just my experience is that I did not think that this idea would become a company, and that was not the goal when I started. It was just having passion about something, working on it, realizing that we were making a lot of progress, and kind of looking back and being like, oh yeah, we should probably turn that into something before somebody else takes it. And then it's just a matter of finding those right resources, who put your IP in place, who help you with the next steps and where you're going. And then all of a sudden it blows up. So innovation can go in a million different directions. But if you have passion about something and you believe in what you're doing, like I said, you can sell that to anybody because they will believe in you if you believe in yourself. So yeah, I think that would be my advice to that of how I would define innovation-driven entrepreneurship is taking something you're passionate about and turning it into your daily life. And that could be your career forever.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, that is so great. That is so great to hear your thoughts and your enthusiasm around that. And I love, especially for folks that are coming out of science-based fields and things like that, or who are like, what am I going to do next? Follow your passion and create your own create your own path, basically. So if folks want to learn more about you, Bronwyn, and your company and those kinds of things, what's the best way to learn about you?
You can check out our website, so PragmaClin.com, but you can also find PragmaClin on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. We are everywhere. And then you can also just connect with myself on LinkedIn, so Bronwyn Bridges on LinkedIn. Happy to chat, happy to give soft intros, and happy to have conversations about anything you thought was interesting.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Yes. I think a lot of folks who are interested in what's happening with Parkinson's, happening with the medtech space will be really interested to learn more about your company and see where you're going and see where you're growing. For those of you who are interested in learning more about Onside and our work around innovation-driven entrepreneurship, you can check out our Inclusive Innovation Monitor that's focused on looking at the metrics and the drivers around an inclusive economy here in our region. And I encourage you to check out our website, onsidenow.ca. And as we come to a close, I'd really like to thank Communities, Culture, and Heritage for your support. We're so grateful for your support in helping us make this podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we can't wait to have you join us next time. Thanks.
This has been a Podstarter production.